Sporty King.
I am ugly. U-G-L-Y. Ugly. Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters and guests, was it just me? Or by a show of hands, how many of you has ever felt that way in your lives? Come on. You see, those of you who didn't raise your hands, you lie. Because each and every one of us at some time in our lives has felt ugly. And I'm not talking about the physical ugly. Sure, that's a part of it. But it goes much deeper than that. How often have we judged a book by its cover? Or justified rather than condemned our actions that excluded or demeaned someone else's character? You and I have felt ugly about something we've done, something we've said, or something we've thought. And that's what I'd like to talk to you about this evening, thinking ugly. But I don't want to talk about it in a way that makes you uncomfortable. So let's realize that UGLY is a wonderful new acronym I've created for unique, gifted, lovable you. See, I once considered myself physically ugly. Oh, I got the Denzel thing going on now. But I was a little guy who cried a lot. The middle child of 3, born 17 months after my brother, just 10 months before my sister. I was never young enough to be the baby. Not old enough to be the #1 son. Wrong sex to be the #1 daughter. And growing up, I constantly heard that he was handsome and the oldest. And I constantly heard that she was pretty and the youngest. And as we got older, he got more handsome and she got prettier, and I proceeded to be a big crybaby that wished people would die when they ignored me. And even worse, I wished I would die to teach them a lesson. You laugh, but many of our kids are still thinking that way. And that's why I'm here to remind you that we must constantly search for ways to add a positive twist to each potentially negative situation. Because how we see ourselves, even as heroes, is sometimes how children define themselves. And that's why I've redefined UGLY. And I redefine positive twist and nickname everything because I have a nickname. My nickname is Sporty. And I live by principles I call Sportyisms. Now, the Sportyism I most want you to remember today is actually Sportyism number 2. Listen to the paragraph, not the sentence. You see, ladies and gentlemen, when we open our minds to absorb ideas in their entirety, we put ourselves in a better position to communicate and to be communicated with. And isn't that all we want sometimes, is to be understood? Let's allow people to finish what they're saying before we judge the content of what they're saying. Now, earlier I said I didn't want to make you uncomfortable. The U in my UGLY once stood for uncomfortable because I was uncomfortable with myself before I understood that each of us is unique. The G stood for ghastly before I grasped the fact that each of us is gifted. The L stood for loser before I learned that each of us is lovable. And the Y stood for yeah, before I could say to myself, I love you, man. You see, understand that there's something unique about each of you here that God has given you like he's given no other person in this room that adds your piece to this puzzle of our existence. Grasp the fact that you woke up this morning. I've been waking up for years. These days I wake up and I look in the mirror and I see the person I love the most and we laugh. Pretty much the way you just did. And that unique quality That gift has been placed inside you to remind you to get the most out of life and to enjoy life. Be ready to share that gift. Sportyism number 1, give. Sooner or later, you'll catch up to what you've received. You see, material possessions are exchanged. When we give of ourselves, our life, our love, our laughter. These are gifts that cannot be compromised or replaced. And your gift could save a life. Maybe not the life that you can see or touch or feel or hear them saying, thank you. Thank you for making a difference in my life. But your gift has been carefully planted inside you on a time release for you to cultivate, nurture, and to bring it forth at just the right moment. So do I have to convince you that you are lovable? Before I learned how to listen and give, I had to convince myself. Here's how I did it. I'd like each of you to think of a person who loves you. Now think of a reason to justify that love for you. Can you see that smile? More importantly, can you feel it? Before we leave tonight, I'd like to ask you to do me 2 favors. One, would you let that person know that you thought of them as U-G-L-Y tonight? And 2, realize that we think faster than we speak. So we tend to anticipate more messages than we listen to. But when we listen to the paragraph, not the sentence, suddenly U-G-L-Y becomes unique, gifted, lovable you, and reminds us to honor the hero in you and stay that way. Mr. Contest Master.